This is episode 5 of the OMGenomics podcast, and today we're talking about what it's like to do consulting in the bioinformatics field. We are your hosts, Maria Nadestad and
Robert Bucalio. Now, to help us dive into consulting and running your own company in the bioinformatics space, we have a special guest with us, Nils Homer, who co-founded Fulcrum Genomics, a bioinformatics consulting company of 8 scientists and engineers with a home base in Boulder, Colorado. They do everything from designing new algorithms to building software tools, pipelines, and systems. Welcome, Nils.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and share some of the things that I've learned over the past 8 years.
Yeah, awesome. So do you want to start by just telling us why you decided in the first place to start a consulting business?
Yeah, I mean, one doesn't really have the best reasons, but and probably not the best timing. I just had my first daughter, and she was 3 months old, and it's a great idea to start a new business and not get paid for 6 months when you have a new kid. But the real reason was I had joined the Broad Institute to lead a software engineering team focused on tools and pipelines and help grow that team. And I really wanted to get my hands back on the keyboard. I really enjoyed technology development, R&D, working with diverse and interdisciplinary scientists, so people in the lab, molecular biologists, chemists, physicists, clinical geneticists, all sorts of people. And starting my own consultancy with Tim allowed us to do that, really focus on looking at data, understanding problems, understanding molecular biology, and that was a lot of fun. And the other half of it was, to be able to control our time. And so, having a freedom to work as much or as little as we wanted to at the beginning, based on, I had a young child. I wanted something different, and similarly for Tim, and that opportunity to pick and choose what problems to work on, who to work with, and have a little flexibility in life was really, really appealing. I also have a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, and starting a business always sounded like fun, so why not, right?
That's interesting. So did you have entrepreneurship experience before Fulcrum, or was that your first?
That was my first experience. And I've made so many mistakes along the way in terms of running a business, how to set things up, how to execute and operate. So much learning around the actual back end of running a business in terms of legal and accounting and sales and client management, team management is a little easier if you have experience there. But no, I didn't have that experience, neither in a previous company nor as an educational background.
Yeah, so we listened to your interview on the Next Flow podcast, which was also really interesting. One thing that really caught our ear was you mentioned making Fulcrum as a lifestyle business and something about growing linearly. So can you talk a little bit
Yes.
more about that?
Yeah, so I think there's two halves to that. One is when Tim and I started the company, we really wanted to have some guardrails around, personal life versus work and how much time we spend working. As we started to bring on folks to help with the work, and we wanted to have that as a core value of our company. We want to work hard within the 40 hours that we work in the week, but I want my nights and evenings and mornings and weekends free to be with my family, do my hobbies, whether that's sports, whether that's ceramics, whether that's something, just sitting there and looking at the ceiling, like that's my time. I think we all feel that way at the company. Is we have intense focus during the time we're working, but unlike say traditional consulting, business consulting, we're not trying to work 60-hour weeks, 80-hour weeks and burn the candle. We really want to make it sustainable where we can have longevity, have a lot of fun, work hard, but also enjoy the fruits of our labor with family and outside of work. So that's why we call it a lifestyle business. It's meant to support our life, and some of the choices around the benefits we offer, the way we are flexible with people's life situations. That's also part of that lifestyle business and the values that we put into the company.
Yeah, we did notice that. So we noticed you're hiring 2 people.
I didn't answer the question about growing linearly, and maybe I can say something about that.
Yeah.
the two job postings we have there, we're a small company, we can do whatever we want, right? And so those are just basically honeypots. We're always hiring, we're always looking for great people. If it's one person or five, we'll hire them. And the problem in our company is not sales. We have enough folks knocking at the door constantly. The problem is, finding people. And so those two are just kind of archetypes of the folks that, we were looking for. In terms of a gradient between folks that are really heavy on the engineering side to all the way to the folks who are on comp bio to think of a triangle of data science or ML. And so we're looking for a diversity of skill sets, and we're trying to attract people based on honest experience. It's not like I've talked to the manager and opened a rec and here it is. We're really trying to hire great people, and when they come along, we'll hire them. So then in terms of growing linear, is challenging, right? We can't grow exponential, or, we're not building a product, we're providing services. And so, to add on people, to train them, consulting is a different tact in terms of how to operate and manage projects and clients. That's going to have to grow kind of linearly, adding a person or two every once in a while, having enough staff internally to support and mentor them as they come into it. And over the long term, in terms of their professional development and career growth. That's really important to us. Like, we don't want to bring in people who are set up for failure. We want to really set it up for success. So it has to be linear. And that's why we're still small. The goal is to increase our size year over year. But, it's hard to find really, really, really excellent people who have the consulting mindset.
Mm. Yeah, so would you say that you are more limited? Like, would you, if you could hire a lot of great people, would you? Or it sounds like you might have some limitations just in terms of who you can train up, but it sounds like you don't have any limitations on the demand for your work.
I think you characterized it correctly. We don't have a limitation at the moment on sales in terms of being able to bring on projects, and we try not to say no to folks. We try to say when and how. I think the thing on hiring people is, we couldn't bring on five people at the same time. We need to have them staggered so that we can find the right projects for them. When you bring, for example, if we bring somebody on tomorrow, I want to have a project that they feel comfortable that they're going to succeed on from day one. But I also want to have projects where that's going to push them. Maybe it's a little bit adjacent to what they're used to. If some area of biology or bioinformatics they haven't explored, and so really start getting them the breadth of experience that you're going to need. And you're constantly learning, you're constantly getting new problems that you haven't seen before. How do you come up to speed quickly on those? And so we want to support people. So you can't really bring on five people at once. Well, you can if you had 15 people, but with 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe you're bringing on one or two at a time.
So one common worry I see about consulting is, do you feel like you're working for yourself or for many individual bosses?
Well, Tim and I are the owners of the business, so we don't have any bosses outside of our clients. I guess I don't even call our clients our bosses. I think so. I mean, it may be a different relationship with folks who are at Fulcrum, given we hired them in. But I think for our clients, it's really collaborative. It's not they're not a boss. I'm trying to deliver value and insight, and whether that's some technical report, whether that's a piece of software, whether that's a new method or statistic, some new way of thinking about the data, or working with them to design wet lab experiments and how is the data going to look, and how are we going to analyze the data. I think really it's very collaborative. So I don't feel like we have bosses. I think it is challenging though, where you might have 2, 3, 4, 5 different clients you're working on, or projects you're working on, and how do you manage your time? How do you manage the expectations of clients want it now? They want it, they have really exciting science and research. Like, you are also motivated to want to deliver now, and how do you manage expectations and when there are risks, especially in R&D. So, I think the tension there is there's just a lot of fun things to do, and you just don't have infinite amount of time to do it. And we also don't want to push people to burn out.
So how do you manage expectations?
Be extremely transparent is the way that we found works, right? Getting on a call with somebody and trying to understand their problem, be really honest about what you can and can't do, what you're willing to try to come up to speed on, be open and honest about what your skill set is and what you feel like you can deliver and how long it's going to take, and say, the error bar is really tight because I've done this 3 times, before, or the error bar is huge. This could be, a month, this could be 6 months, and that's not a good enough answer. Then putting a process around to say, okay, here's how we're going to contain budget. Here's how we're going to measure our progress. Maybe it's an iterative R&D effort, right? We're going to put, 2 or 4 weeks of effort into getting some result, or some even a negative result, which sometimes is really valuable. And just putting process around that so that folks feel like there's progress being made. They're really in tune with what's being worked on, and the results. It's just this transparency and communication is 100% the most important part of our business. I always think of our business not as a bioinformatics consultancy, but we're a relationship business. We really want to make people happy, excited about the work that we do, excited about their data, about their problems, and feel like, we're doing it in a respectful, professional, and interactive way, right? And so the relationships matter. And I think being open and transparent allows for a really healthy relationship. We always find problems, right? Like, you're doing R&D and you're like, oh, this data doesn't look really, really good. Maybe someone messed up in the wet lab, right? And not trying to go and hide that, but bring that up as soon as you can. Have a conversation with them, move forward. There's no blame game there, right? It's like, how do we solve the problem? How do we move forward? And I think that's really important to have that mindset.
I think that's true
And
for
so,
any the collaboration. Yeah.
Yeah.
so when you first started, where did you get those customers from? Was it mainly through posting on Twitter, or was there some other venues too?
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to take that opportunity to say that, my Twitter persona is not me. It is definitely a place where I go and vent, and allows me to have a great mental health in my real life. I will say, so the way it worked for us was, both Tim and I, when we started the business, had an existing client, each a client that we transferred into the business, who had been moonlighting before Fulcrum. So we had kind of tried out the, let's work a little bit on the side. And then I will say, maybe say the other different way. Marketing, we haven't put a lot of effort in marketing. We're not sponsoring events or putting Facebook ads. We've tried a bit of cold calling. None of it has worked. So, I mean, take it with a grain of salt, because we haven't really put a lot of effort into it. But we haven't had to, because most, if not all, of our clients have come from referrals. So how do we get clients at the beginning? Referrals. How do we get clients in the middle? Referrals. How do we get clients now? Referrals. And it could be, there's two ways that happens. One is, we do great work for people. They talk with their colleagues and say, oh, this Fulcrum Genomics would be great great fit for this problem that you're having. The other one is, we've been around 8 years. A lot of our clients, the individual people, job hop, right? Which is completely normal and expected, and that's fine. So we have had, a single individual, for example, I think has the record is 4 different clients from the single individual, right? And they moved moved jobs enough, and they're like, hey, I'm new company now, so let's sign a new contract. I'm like, okay. And we've kept working with the previous company that they were at, and so that's really helpful too. So I think there's a momentum, there's an acceleration there once you start doing good work for people, and you get your name out there, and people are able to talk about what value you bring and what you're good at, and they can trust you. Then I think that's when that kind of sales just picks up a lot, right?
I like that you mentioned job hopping. That was our episode 3, actually, inspired by some of the conversations I think we saw you having on Twitter with other people about this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And episode 4 was about not having a PhD, and I will say, Tim, my business partner, does not have a PhD. I have a PhD, and I wanted to be really clear. I wanted to say and comment that there's only one instance where that's mattered, and that's been in expert witness work, whereas there have been, whether it's a patent dispute or something else like that, coming in as an expert witness. We've done this work, or I've done this work a number of times now, and even though I think Tim might have been better suited for that work, he might have a little more knowledgeable or had more experience in some of those. Like he can't get in there because he doesn't have a PhD, which I think is I think he can go get a PhD tomorrow somewhere, given the work he's done. So it's a little unfair, but that's the way it is. But all places else hasn't mattered.
Yeah, thank you for adding that perspective. I think we have a similar opinion where we're just like, it shouldn't matter because people like Steve that we interviewed in the last episode have clearly done the same level of scientific, rigorous work
Yep.
that he could go and get a PhD tomorrow, right?
Yep.
I was just imagining you like taking the stand or something,
Yeah.
like in the movies. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Someone yelling at me, I want the truth. You can't handle the sequencing errors.
um, so one thing we are curious about is how do you
Mhm.
interview new clients, and have you ever
Mm.
chosen not to work with anyone because, like, for whatever reason?
I think interview clients sounds I don't do interviewing clients. Really what we try to do in our sales process, and we're very open about this, is get on the phone with somebody the first time and try to understand their problem and try to be able to communicate back that we understand what their problem is and have some off the cuff potential ideas for paths forward, right? And then really a lot of the times people are coming to you, you're the first person that really is engaging with them, right? And engaging with their problem, not dismissing them, or you really want to get a sense of that you care because it's the problems they have are interesting and they become your problems and they're really fun. So I think in not interviewing a client, it's just really connecting with the client, right? And I think that's really important. To your second question, I'll go a little further. Is we have definitely passed on projects and new clients for good and bad situations. One is, good is like, we're just not the right fit, or we think other folks are the right fit. That's not our skill set. Like a good example would be, we're not that great at front ends. Like, do not make us write a front end. I can do it. I don't want to do it. I'm going to charge you a lot of money for it because I don't want to do it. And limbs is another example. It's like just go use Benchling or something, right? Like don't bug me about limbs, right? I mean I'll integrate with the limbs, I'll do all that kind of stuff, but I don't need to be doing limbs. Or there'll be cases where like some new area in biology and there's nobody in the world that's done this before, and we'll be like, we don't know how to do this. No, I don't know anybody who knows how to do this. I'm not saying there isn't, but we're willing to learn and try with you. And then some clients will move forward, some clients won't, right? They'll take the chance on you or they won't. In terms of the negative, we've had interactions with some folks that we just were like, this person's rude, unprofessional. I don't need this. I want, we're not gonna move forward with this. We have enough business, and we don't need to put that on our team or ourselves. We've also fired clients, and by firing, like we'll meet the commitments we said we would do, and then we just won't renew. We won't do more work. So yeah, absolutely, we can make those choices to not work with people at the beginning or middle or end.
So why do people come to you instead of, let's say, building things in-house?
I don't think it's either or. I think people do both. We have, I would say we have a unique set of skills, but since they're not very unique, and I don't know how skilled we are, but we do have the ability to, we've done this a lot, right? Worked at single person startups where we're the only bioinformaticians there, and so we have experience for setting up infrastructure, setting up new algorithms, new pipelines, looking at new data, and people come to us for that, right? And they can't hire, at least before 6 months ago, they couldn't hire people fast enough, right? And similarly, like the first hire is the most important into one of those companies, right? And so they don't even know what to look for in a person. So we might come and help them build the team. And a good example is a company called Twin Strand Biosciences, where we were the first in the door on the bioinformatics side, and they grew their company to I think a data science team of 40 plus. We were still working with them and helping them, but their needs evolved, right, as they built the team. Larger companies, pharmaceutical companies, large therapeutic companies will also come to us for expertise or bandwidth. Frankly, like we put out a lot of open source tools, which I think is a really good thing for us from a business point of view. Also, we like open source, and that gets our name out there, and people are like, hey, I don't know how to run this pipeline you've built, or I haven't want to tune it, or I have I want to modify it because I have a new CRISPR enzyme or a new way of editing, DNA or RNA, and can you help us modify this analysis? And it's like, sure. I mean, so we get a lot of business that way, and that's another avenue.
Do you work with any academics at all? Or is it all companies?
We have worked with a few academic groups. Unfortunately, we price ourselves pretty expensive in the market. As I probably say on Twitter often enough, they just get a postdoc to do it. All right, and we're much more expensive than postdocs. So it's really, and I feel for academia because they have such interesting, difficult problems. They're on the cutting edge. It's very, it aligns with my life purpose of doing good, right? And our company as well. But on the other hand, we have to run a business. So it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, this is something we want to do an episode on at some point. We were just brainstorming this morning that there are just so many things that prevent scientists from getting paid very much for their work. Like postdocs are hugely underpaid.
Hmm.
People don't want to they don't want to pay for software most of the time
Nope.
in science,
Nope.
and all these sort of associated problems.
Hmm. I mean, it wasn't until maybe 5 or 6 years ago that I didn't feel like a second-class citizen in life science, right? And really, it was there to facilitate, folks who are coming from more traditional biology or human genetics or the wet lab to facilitate their work, right? Versus being a first-class discipline, right? And that's been really challenging, and that comes along with, the ability to make decisions, having agency, but also pay. And it's tough. People with our skill sets, we could go work in tech, and make a lot more money and make people click ads, and that's just not. But that's not what I want to do for the world. I have a vision of my life and looking back on it and on what I've accomplished and with my family. It's not what I want. So it's hard to reconcile those two things. But yeah, so academia, sorry.
So let's say you talk to a client, going back to that process, like what does a typical engagement look like? Is there a typical engagement that you do?
Yeah, it's tough because everything's custom, right? It's very
Right.
bespoke, everything we do. I think the key is, the first project you do, you want to have it small, well scoped, and deliver high value. And that's difficult to find because in that one, you want to be able to accomplish something meaningful. You want to build trust with the client. You want to learn how to work with the client, right? It could be learn to work with the client. It's like, what's the tempo for meetings? What's the tempo for Slack or Teams or getting used to their infrastructure or have new technology no one's ever seen before? Like, I need to learn this, right? Or I need to go read these 6 papers because I don't know what B cells are, right? Like, who knows, right? So you might need to learn a discipline really quickly. So I think having something like that de-risks the first engagement, and then moving on to anything and everything in terms of a relationship and work. Some folks will want to be constantly working with you. They have so much interesting work that they can send your way that you're working with them 50% time with them or more. Some folks, okay, now I need to go think about this in the wet lab for a month and a half, and then they come back with an amazing data set, and you're like, oh, I just want to like stop everything I'm doing and go look at the data. And be like, you could have given me a week notice, and I could have set everything aside, right? So you really have to be flexible in terms of structuring the engagements to support both models. I will say that it's really difficult to do ad hoc work, like just to say, oh, just call me when you need me, because you have no ability to plan, right? You will always be over capacity, overbooking because you don't want to waste any of your time. So, I think that's one of the challenges is managing your time effectively and structuring projects and work so that you can fill up your time and your team's time effectively.
That's really interesting. That sounds like when you join a new company and you're onboarding, like as a job, and you're trying to find a starter project, it kind of sounds like you're doing something similar, right?
Yep, exactly. Right. And part of the interview process that we have with candidates is trying to figure out what is going to be their starter project. Not only like what is their strengths and weaknesses, where do we think we want to invest in professional development for them, and but also what are the projects that are going to, make them successful from day one, as well as push them, in the first couple months. So I think that's really important to have a holistic view of folks as they come on board. Are they going to be successful?
One thing we noticed on your website is that you say you don't do fixed price engagements. Can you tell us some of your thoughts on that?
Let me just step back. Like, I would love to do fixed price engagements. I would make a lot of money. I would love to do revenue-based engagements too. Like, we get some revenue of the percentage of the revenue, but we're just not that company, right? We're too far away from. We're doing R&D. We're doing, a lot of the upstream bioinformatics, whether that's in a regulated space or not, right? We're just too far upstream. And so with fixed price projects, like the amount of effort that I have to do to scope the project accurately so that I feel really good about, the bounds, the estimates, it's a lot of upfront work, right? And that's not a guarantee that the person's or company is going to go forward with the project, right? I might spend a week scoping a project, interviewing folks at the company, really digging into some, example data or example technology, all for naught, right? So there's a lot of upfront investment in terms of scoping it out. And then as part of the relationship, it's adversarial, right? Like I'm trying to get the project done with as little effort as possible, the least amount of time, so that I can keep as much of the money as possible, right? And if I've been on the other side as a manager who's hired folks, it's like I'm trying to get as much out of it as possible. I'm trying to increase scope I mean, I might not do it consciously, but I'm trying to get the most value out of that fixed price as possible, right? And it's just not a relationship that I want to have, and I think our company wants to have with others in terms of an adversarial relationship. We want to really be collaborative, and the model that we, it's not the best in the consulting world, but the model that we've landed on is time and materials, right? And providing people with good estimates and keeping people apprised of how close are we getting to those estimates, and making decisions about when things go south, or you pull a thread in some R&D project where you find something, and a lot of the times you find something really interesting, and clients will be like, no, now we need to put a lot more effort on this, right? And that's really, really fun. And so the budget increases. That's fine. So I think just being flexible and open and honest and transparent with the work that you do and the pricing is really important, and not putting yourself in a position where you're against your client. You're with your client, with the people you're working with.
I had an experience myself of trying to do consulting briefly.
Hmm.
I had done some in grad school during my PhD where I was basically just I was building a front end, like a visualization tool
Yeah.
for another academic. And that was super easy. I think I made like $80 an hour, which was great money, like as a grad student.
Yep.
And then later I was trying to start my own business, and I heard that, I heard advice online about how it's really important to scope a project and
Hmm.
really define everything ahead of time for some reason. But this was from someone online who is a website designer. So they could actually repeat that process many times.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
tried to do exactly this, like scope another web app kind of heat map component or something for a company. And I spent a bunch of time on it, and then they never really got back to me. And yeah, like you said, it's just you put in a lot of work, but the incentives are not aligned, and it's weird. So yeah, I think you're doing the right thing with charging by the hour. And that was also my conclusion after I actually joined industry and
Yeah.
got more experience of seeing contractors, and they all work by the hour. It just makes more sense.
One thing you can do is, if there's a large scoping effort, you should get paid for that time, right? Like when we're working, you should get paid for the work that you do. And so we have had engagements where like, listen, we actually have no idea what the scope of work is. This could be 1 week, this could be 1 year, right? Let us come in and put together a technical requirements document, maybe put together an architecture document, like so consulting, but like let's put together the scope and interview folks, like we can even come on site. Let's figure it out and come up with solutions. And then once we have the concrete idea of what we want to build or what we want to do, then we can scope that out nicely. But that is a actual valuable thing to the client, right? And I think a lot of folks spend months and going back and forth with a potential client, well, we could do this, well, we could do that. It's like no, you should. That brainstorming is like you'd get paid for that if you're working full time at a job, right? That's the way I think about it. Is um, if you're in a salary position, would they pay your salary to do this? It's like yes. So why shouldn't I get paid to do scoping work? Why shouldn't I get paid to deliver valuable things like that? So that's how you can reorient that conversation with a client when they really want something detailed in terms of scoping beyond a couple hours of effort.
That's a really good point. Yeah, if I ever do consulting, I will re-listen to this episode and get a lot of great advice.
And then in terms of estimating how much effort something is, especially for us, we're not trying to make really detailed scopes of work because we want to get started. You really have to just have years of experience, with this gut intuition about how long something's going to take. Of course, if you've done this before, if it's adjacent to something before, you can be much more confident. But I think you also only want to accept work, and when you're going to scope it tightly, that you can be confident you can execute on, and then just be open and honest, like, I have no idea, and let's just put some effort on it and go from there.
One thing I wanted to come back to that you mentioned is
Hmm.
about building open source tools and how that's
Hmm.
been useful. I'm curious, like, is that a conscious effort to, just give back to the community? Is it a form of marketing? Like, how has that helped?
All of the above, right? Like, nothing is singular in this effort. So in our contracts with our client, we do have a clause that says, with their permission, we can make things open source, and we're allowed to make contributions back to open source. Like, if I find a bug in SnakeMake or Nextflow, I want to be able to report that issue, and if I can fix it, and contribute back fixes. If I have an analysis tool, a software tool that goes into FGBio or it is on, I can put up on our GitHub as something that's interesting or useful. Like, I want to be able to make that open source, right? And so if it doesn't reveal IP and they're okay with it, and I get written authorization, I'll make it open source. Another thing is a lot of our clients don't want to own the support of the software, right? They have some new sequencing technology, they are some new library kit, capture technology, what have you. If they're very much a kit and consumables company, then they want to not have to support the software. So then open source is really appealing to them, right? They can push out the support to the open source community. So it's a win-win there. And then in terms of marketing, like, you can go and look at the quality of our tools and how that's evolved over time, because we're
Mm.
perfect. The quality of our tools and the work that we do, and that's also kind of a hallmark for the standard that we set for the work that we provide to our clients. And so that's both a marketing tool as well as like a double check in terms of our work. I will say that, like, less than 10% of our work is open source, just because it does reveal a lot of stuff about clients' work, technology or IP, and that's fine. But only 10% can get out there. It's more than zero, and I like that. And I've always been proponent of open source. So as Tim, Tim developed HSJDK and Picard, and so things like that are really important to both of us to put out there. I don't think we're going to make money on software as well. Like, I haven't come up with a brilliant idea of, like, I'm going to make this piece of bioinformatics and everybody's going to pay for it. It's like, it hasn't happened yet. When it does, I will, but like, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, we have some questions about that coming up too.
Okay.
One thing I also wanted to ask you about, just as an overview,
Hmm.
I think you might be getting a better, broader view of the bioinformatics field than most people get exposed to unless they job hop like every six
Sure.
months or something. So, is there anything that has surprised you or any general things you've observed from all that perspective you get?
The thing that surprised me is we're solving the same problems, but in a different domain, right? Like, you're always writing similar tools using similar techniques, whether it's, it was single cell a while ago, and now everybody's doing all sorts of weird gene editing assays, going into the protein space, even ML, it's like, okay, ML is all feature extraction, like, and then we spend a lot of money on training. Really, a lot of the same bioinformatic techniques and problems is what surprised me. Is like, I thought I would be not writing an aligner 20 years after I wrote my first aligner, but here I am today writing a new aligner because there's some really cool, interesting technology that needs to look at the data in a certain way, and alignment is a useful tool there. So I think it's the experience that there's new things, but you're always using a lot of the old work that you've seen or done, which is surprising. I think in the place that we're seeing a lot of our work go towards is in the gene editing space. All sorts of different ways of packaging and editing things with integrases, CRISPR, transposases, talons, recombinases. Like, it's like really cool biology. But when you get down to it and you look at NGS readout, or if you're doing in silico off-target prediction, it's like, oh wait, I'm aligning again, right? Oh, I'm looking at bases again, right? I'm trying to reconstruct things. Maybe there's like reshuffling of different components and you're trying to screen for that. So there may be some different statistics you have to do to assess significance, but the underlying, like, how do I process the data is very similar. So I think it's like same stuff, different day.
Interesting. And so if you have this many similarities, like one thing that you often hear is people do consulting for a few years and they figure out that a lot of their customers have the same problems.
Mhm.
Have you been able to see that in bioinformatics?
And can you solve it with a software tool that you buy that people can pay for?
Like I said, I haven't explored that option because I don't believe that's. I haven't seen something where people are going to pay. It's really weird. People will pay a lot of money for you to build custom tools and do custom analysis, but they won't pay pittance for actually just a pre-baked software, right?
Hmm.
And they will also pay a lot of money for you to customize and evaluate your like FGBio. There's a lot of tools there for consensus calling based off of UMI data. And we have lots of companies that come to us and ask us, hey, can you come help us implement this for our technology? It's like, it's pre-baked. Like, we just got to tune and parameterize it. But they're spending a lot of money on our effort to turn the right knobs and tell them what to do, and look at their data. So I think for us, it's like we haven't found that yet. I'd love to find it. Like I think of things like, Sention's a great example of accelerating alignment. So there's like the whole performance side. Dragon, absolutely love them. I use them all the time. So there's like speeding up alignment and speeding up analyses, variant calling, things like that. But there's also like Crispresso, right? Like I think you have to pay for it, or databases of annotations around specific data sets. Like those things you have to pay for. You have to get licenses for. It's like, okay, they're examples, but people aren't making a living off of it. In terms of a broad number of people, a large number of people, there are a few people that are making a living off of it. So I would look at it really hard to see if you're actually going to get paid and support yourself with it.
Yeah, I'm one of the people who has a software tool that I sell to people, but it's only $100, and I've had like 800 customers total. So
It's awesome.
yeah, it's pretty good, but that was over the course of 6 years. So then
Yep.
this is Circa, which makes Circo's plots.
Yep.
But yeah, I was never going to pay my rent.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like if you can, a lot of this even consulting stuff is on the side, right? And that's why, you go back to, hey, I earned $80 an hour on this project. It's like, that's really great when you have a side hustle, right? That's really great when someone's paying for your benefits. That's great when you have a salary and you have something stable. That's not a good rate, even close to it, if you're the risk of tomorrow someone could terminate your contract. You don't know if you're going to have business in 6 months, right? You have to factor in the risk as well as paying the rent, right? And the stress of consulting is a little higher, especially running a business, than just clocking in, clocking out at a company. So this is for the business owner in me, not necessarily the folks that are working at Fulcrum, but it's very stressful. So you should get financially rewarded greater for that, right? Like that, like otherwise I'd just go back to work for biotech company and live a stress-free life, I suppose. No, but yeah.
Oh. Because you said that you're doing it for the lifestyle partly, but you also are now saying it's more stressful.
Yeah, it's intense during the time, right, that I'm working, right? As a business owner, it's different. It's a little different as we're scaling the team than it is for the team, right? Now I'm responsible for the livelihood of these individuals who I really care about, right? And I want to make sure that we have, work coming in, interesting things for them to work on, for them to learn and grow. I want to. It's I'm going to pay them first before me, right? Like there's all this kind of mentality that you want to have to do right by your people and by your clients, right? If we mess up, it comes out of the company's pocket, right? And so I think that's so much different that's a different, existential angst maybe than, working at a company, right? So for a business owner or, there's a different set of responsibilities. If you're, contracting on your own, I think it's a little different than when you have employees and you're responsible for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I admire you for taking on that responsibility. I
Oh,
don't
thank you.
envy it.
I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the team that we have. They're wonderful people and they are unbelievable scientists, and I really enjoy working. I come into work every day like looking forward to hearing the things that they've done and helping them unblock things. And if I can contribute in my small way to their progress in their projects, and I can feed them interesting things that they're really happy about, like, oh my gosh, it's really fun. On the hand, like, when they get really into something, it's just they're amazing in terms of how determined, how much grit, and some of the things that they invent and come up with. So it's a lot of fun. Just like working on a really, we all have our favorite jobs from our past where we had great managers, great team, great problem, and just like those 6 months or that 2 years that you worked at that place, like, so that's kind of how it feels at the moment.
That sounds so wholesome.
It does.
I'm sorry. I'll try to be more like my Twitter persona. Sorry.
On that note, do you have any thoughts on cloud platform companies?
You mean like Amazon and Google, or are you talking about like the bioinformatics platform
The
companies?
bioinformatics ones.
I think it's a really hard problem to solve, and one that I don't envy. Putting together user interfaces that biologists can use, that the computational biologists can use, and who people like myself who are purport to be software engineers also don't scoff at. It's really, really hard. What are the boxes they're trying to check? So like companies like DNA Nexus, Nextflow Tower, now Latch Bio, there's Seven Bridges Genomics. Like we've used Terra, we've used all of those in different capacities, and have experience with all of them. It's just really hard to solve the problem in general. Another one is Pluto Biosciences. So like they're all really, really good platforms. I just wouldn't want to do it. Like that just sounds incredibly stressful, and not, people don't want to pay for it, right? Like I'll just set up an AWS batch environment and or a parallel cluster, and I'll just run my data through there. Like why do I need these platforms? Until you start using them and you realize how powerful they can be in terms of data provenance, scaling the work you're doing, and enabling non-computationalists to run really interesting experiments. That's when you see the power of it. I'm just going to complain forever because I see it through the lens of a software engineer, right? And I could do it better. And also, this workflow language sucks, or this platform sucks, or I could run this faster. And that's who it is. I think a lot of worries around the platforms are whether they'll be around for the long term, right? We've had clients who will not go and work with a platform because they're 10-person shop or 20-person shop, they're venture funded. Like who knows what the longevity of them are, right? Are they going to spend all of the effort to lift over, say, their clinical diagnostic test to this platform when in 6 months they might have to buy the company because it's going under, right? So there's that too, right? Which is really tough for these companies. I'm not going to badmouth them because I'm going to leave that for Twitter.
Excellent. You'll find links to Nils's Twitter in our show notes.
Let me just say that I haven't found one which I absolutely love. Both in terms of workflow languages, I'm very familiar with WDL, Nextflow, SnakeMake, others. I've used all these platforms. I've deployed apps on all of them, all the way back to base, right? Like I have apps up there, and I haven't fell in love with them, but that I'm not necessarily the audience for all of them, right? So that's okay. What I've seen is a few of them, for specific purposes, really enable people who aren't me to do really interesting work or scale their work, and that's where I see it. It's not an all-purpose platform. At the moment, I see these things really as useful for different groups of people, whether that's like a big company that needs to do a lot of tests, or a nimble R&D group at a technology company, and so on. And it's also interesting to look at their pricing models in terms of, is it a usage based? Are they skimming off the top? Or is it per seat? So you have a 50-person data science organization, you have to pay like thousands of dollars per person per seat. It's like, whoa, right? So you have to think about what the pricing is there and all that when you're evaluating that for a client. Some platforms might just be too expensive or not the right fit for them.
Are there any takeaways that you want to make sure that our listeners take away from this episode, or any final thoughts that you want to share?
I would say I'm really positive on the field of bioinformatics. I think one thing that bioinformaticians are, whether you're more on the comp bio side or more on the engineering side, regardless, we're resilient. right? And we're adaptable. And I think we've seen this field transform, at least I've seen it transform, every couple of years into something new. And people, the amazing ability for people to adapt, to learn, to come up to speed. It's not something where, okay, now sequencing is solved and therefore you don't need a bioinformatician, right? I don't see the need for bioinformaticians going away. So I see them evolving, and that's just the nature of the field, and that's the fun part of the work. And I think for folks out there looking to be, to get into bioinformatics, folks who are worried about the, where's bioinformatics going, all I see are just not enough people and so many fun things to do, so many interesting problems to solve, and difficult problems. It's only going to get harder. I don't know what that's going to be in 5 years. I can't tell you what the field is going to be working on, but I know that it's going to be fun, exciting, and challenging and rewarding. And we're going to be helping other people. We're going to be saving lives. We're going to be improving lives. And I think that matters. And so I'm really, really positive on bioinformatics. Obviously, I'm super biased because I have a company for it. But if it turns out that saving the world requires making people click ads, I'll do it. But right now, it's good. I love bioinformatics, and I'm really positive about the future of it. So please take away from this that regardless of where you're at, what you're doing, if you're in academia, if you're in a biotech company, startup, big pharma, wherever, you're making a difference. I think that to me is I've just seen so many incredible people through my time consulting. I've seen 50 times the number of people that I have working for companies. I'm just so positive on the people in our field that it makes me really optimistic about our future too. So take away, life's good.
Again, very wholesome.
I am Canadian, so.
Robert, you had some notes about who Nils is hiring for.
Yes, it sounds like you're hiring for a principal bioinformatics engineer and a principal bioinformatics scientist. Very nicely, the base salary is listed on the website as 175 to 200, and
$1,000 per year.
such good things.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yes. I don't mean $175 a year.
Yeah, I think the thing I would say about the openings are, those are just really examples. We don't just have two. We don't have to fill two. We can fill if we don't find the right people, we're not gonna hire. If we find a lot of really good people, we're gonna try to make it work. And folks who have industry experience are really valuable to us, who've learned to work on different for different projects, handling multitasking on different projects, learning how to assess what they need to do next, how to plan their week, what are the risks and priorities, really being able to manage their own time effectively. There's a whole other side to consulting, which is non-technical from the bioinformatics work, which is really learned a lot in industry. So we really prioritize folks who have had some time in industry. But in terms of the discipline, like having an anchor is really important. Like, is your anchor engineering? Is your anchor bioinformatics? Is your anchor comp bio? Is it data science? Is it is it biology, right? Human genetics? Like, we can make it work. We just need to have an anchor, and we can then grow out from there. So I say, if you don't see something on there, please apply. And the other part of it is like we're also really striving to make things equitable. So we do, just to say it out loud, all of our comp is standardized. So standardized by title. So everybody knows how much everybody makes based on their title internally in the company. It makes it super fair. I'm transparent, about what people are paid for. So that's another thing in terms of applying for the job. Like, if you don't hesitate and say, oh, I don't meet these qualifications, like, just apply. I will give you a personal response as to what things you could work on, or what have you, if we don't feel like we want to move forward. And we just want to say, like, just apply and we'll, there's no judgment in terms of if you're looking for a specific thing or you have a certain experience. Like, we just want to have as many folks apply so that we can find the right fit for everybody. And I will say our clients are all hiring as well. I mean, there's a reason why they're consulting with us. And so if we do have a good fit somewhere else like that, we've also done that before too. So what I say is in terms of our hiring, like, we want to make it fair. We want to make it equitable. We really value equity. We really value our people. And so we've put together not only hiring practice, but also a compensation package, which we believe promotes those core values. Lots of time off. Healthcare is 99% paid for because you're not allowed to do 100% as a small business. But like all those kinds of things, like another piece of learning. But like all the, and we have a unique retirement plan for folks who are interested in that. We put a lot of money away for you, and it's immediately under your control invested. There's no like, if you leave the company, it's not yours. It's like it's immediately there. And so I think we have to do it by law. And so, there's just lots of really good things that we put in place to support our team and our people. And, we want to see more people come in and live the good life at our company. I will say during the interview process, we will get into all the negatives about the company because there are, a few negatives. It's always a trade-off. There's always a little bit of a compromise. But, just like we treat our clients, we want to be open and transparent with people about, what to expect when working with us.
That sounds fantastic. Where can people find you on the internet?
So you can find us at www.fulcrumgenomics.com. If you would like to apply, there's a careers page there. You can just submit your forms, upload your resume, and it goes right to my inbox. So I will be sitting here waiting for it. And my DMs are open on Twitter as always, and feel free to blast me on Twitter as much as you want. I'll take it personally and we'll fire back. And you can reach me directly via email at nils@fulcrumgenomics.com if you have any questions or comments, or you have any other thing you want to talk about. I'm very responsive and would love to engage with anybody out there. The other offer I will make is, I really enjoy talking to early career scientists. So they're folks that are trying to understand where they're going and want some 30 minutes of my time, 15 minutes of my time just to talk through what they're doing. And where what my perspective is, reach out to me. I'm happy to have a conversation and brainstorm, to give back a little bit. So put that offer on the table for folks out there listening to this.
Thank you so much for that. I think that's very generous to offer your time to early career scientists too. You might get a lot of messages, but
I already do, and I'm happy to take them. I know I could have used that help when I was at their stage. So.
Yeah, I didn't even know what to ask back then. So hopefully this podcast also helps people figure out what to even ask about or think about or consider for their own careers.
Yeah, the question is the answer, right? So that's figuring out what the right question is the hardest part.
Yeah, very true. Well, thank you so much, Nils. It was great talking to you. Thank you all for listening and potentially watching this on YouTube.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.